You're listening to the Love Over Addiction podcast. Hey there. So, how are you doing? Are you hanging in? I think it's the beginning of summer for just about everyone. The virus is still going on, and I think we're all getting used to the new normal of wearing masks everywhere. I just went to get my hair done finally, and it was weird. I had to sanitize my hands. I had to take my temperature. I had to wear a mask. It was crazy. I'm not going to say I'm a fan of this, but I don't think anyone is. So I definitely respect people's priorities. But I can't wait for this thing to be over and go back to normal. I bet you can't either. All right. Today, we are going to be talking about arguing, fighting, confronting, voicing how you feel, and specifically, I'm going to teach you what it looks like to be in a relationship with a healthy person, someone who does not have a history of struggling with addiction, and what fighting and arguing looks like with a healthy relationship versus what fighting and arguing looks like when you are struggling with addiction in your relationship. And I'm doing this because I remember when I was married to a great man who was struggling with addiction, and I always questioned, like, is this normal? When we would fight, I'd be like, is it me? Did I bring, all these negative behaviors or patterns into our relationship? Is this how normal people argue? Do they feel as frustrated as this? And I was constantly comparing what was normal to me living with addiction, if that was normal for other people. And how often do you run into couples that really go into detail about how they fight? I mean, a lot of people don't really share that information. So now that I'm in a healthy relationship and a healthy marriage, I want to share with you what it looks like and what it sounds like when you're fighting so that you can compare. And also, I think it's really important to take note that it is normal to argue in any type of relationship, whether you're dealing with addiction or not. When I left my husband, who was struggling with addiction, that was a huge wake-up call for me, going into my next relationship and seeing, it's not perfect, and there is no such thing as perfect. And I kind of had to adjust my expectations a little bit and go, yeah, it's okay. It's actually even quite healthy for couples to have points of contention or friction and work through that together. Because here's the scoop. If you are in a healthy relationship and you have conflict, which is normal, if you know how to fight fair, it actually can help you come out even stronger and healthier and more connected to your spouse, which again kind of helps you grow as a human being and as a couple. But if you're not fighting fair, if somebody is not playing by the rules, which is what I'm going to explain in a moment, it can actually continue to cause a wedge in between your relationship. And I heard this a long time ago, but I love this analogy. When you, I don't know where I heard it from either, but when you agree to be in a relationship with someone, I want you to think that there's an imaginary rope. Those types of ropes that have like not millions, but like dozens and dozens, or even sometimes hundreds of strings that make up the rope. I think like a lot of them, sailboats use those types of ropes. I want you to think about an imaginary rope between you and your partner. And every time that there is trust broken, one of those strings breaks as well. And so if you're in a relationship with a partner who is lying to you or manipulating you or is not taking responsibility for their crap, is not there to be your greatest cheerleader and lift you up and honor you, then those strings can be broken quite often. And you might find yourself feeling like you're in a relationship with somebody where you are barely hanging on. And there might be only one or two of those little strings left. And you know that they're going to be broken soon based on previous behaviors. And so part of you is going, oh my gosh, please, please stop lying to me. Please stop manipulating me and breaking my trust and hurting me, because there's not much going left here between us for me to hold on to. And I know that if this continues, I'm going to have to leave. And leaving for a lot of us feels incredibly scary because, well, that's why a lot of people hang on to unhealthy relationships. We have to think about the financial repercussions. Like, what are we going to do for money now that our income might be divided in half? What effects does leaving have on the children? What am I going to tell my friends or family? And plus, you might still be in love with this person or think you're in love with this person. So we get really scared when we come down to just a few strings. And by the way, when those strings break, it really hurts. It feels like rejection. So it's okay for you to feel upset and react when one of those strings is broken. It creates fear that is real for you. But we need to know, okay, how do we handle these feelings? How do we communicate in an effective way with our loved one? And is that even possible when you're dealing with somebody who is constantly denying that they have a problem or refusing to take responsibility, right? So let me give you the healthy version, the healthy model when you are in a relationship with somebody who is either actively sober and taking their sobriety very seriously and is doing a lot of personal growth, because we know that just getting sober is not good enough. You might think, if they just quit drinking, or if they just quit using drugs, or they stop looking at pornography or gambling or whatever, that's going to be good enough, that's like the setting the bar for a great relationship. And I am here to tell you, because I love you and I want to speak truth to you, that's actually not the case, because they can fall into a pattern or a behavior called dry drunk. And I use the word drunk just as an overall umbrella for any kind of addiction behavior. It can be dry addict or dry ex-pornography looker or whatever. That doesn't make sense, but you guys get what I'm saying. Regardless of what they're addicted to, when they go dry, meaning they quit, their personal growth gets stunted. We've talked about this before. So if they started their addiction when they were 17, and now you're dealing with the 34-year-old, when they get sober, their personal growth has been stunted over all of those years. Do the math on your own. I'm not good at that, but whatever that is, whatever number that is, you're dealing with a teenager still when they get sober. They have avoided their personal growth for those amount of years. Their growth has been stunted. So if it feels like you're in a relationship with a kid, you are. They don't have the coping skills that you have acquired over all of these years because they've been covering it up with their addiction. So what I was saying is that getting sober is not enough. They have to be committed to doing the work. And so do you. And this is where our responsibility and our accountability come in. If you want to make your life better, the secret and the success does not lie in them getting sober. It actually lies within you and your work. You're in charge of your day, and you're in charge of your environment, and you're in charge of your feelings. And if you don't understand that, or you're not taking responsibility for that, that's called codependency. And so even me, I'm in a healthy relationship, but I don't place my responsibility of my happiness or joy on my spouse. That's for me, which is why, remember last week we talked about being in charge of your environment and listening to great music and, using all of your senses. So lighting candles or, even smell, like baking, and tactile, like using your hands, to write, to journal, to paint, to garden, anything like that. So, all right, we're going to talk about what it means to fight fair with somebody who is either recovering from addiction, and we just outlined what that looks like, or never had a problem with addiction to begin with, but is a mature, responsible adult, okay? So let's say I have a problem. Let me give you a scenario. I'll give you a personal scenario because I make it super personal all the time. Okay, let's say I have a problem with my spouse about the lack of discipline that he is providing a child. We have a disagreement. I think there needs to be a conversation and he does not. So I go to him and I say, let's sit down, and we turn off the TV and we turn off all distractions, and he sits up. He was laying on the couch and he sits up in his chair. So he shows me using his body language that he's actually interested in what I have to say. And he's open to hearing me. He's not sitting there with his legs crossed and his arms crossed and just with a sour look on his face. And I am mirroring that look back to him. I am, sitting there with open arms and with body language that suggests I'm not here to attack you. I'm not here to criticize you. I just want to express my feelings and work through this together. Okay? And so when you are fighting fair, I'm the one with the problem, I am going to sit down and I'm going to explain how I feel. I'm not going to expect him to read my mind. Okay? So that means I'm not going to walk around the house giving him the silent treatment or closing cabinets really hard or huffing and puffing, right? And I have done that before, I'm not going to lie. But I'm actually taking responsibility for my feelings and starting a conversation with the goal of getting to a better place. I'm going to keep my statements brief, okay? So I'm not going to go on and on and on, lecture, nag, and I'm not, and I've been known to do this, I am not going to throw the whole kitchen sink, pile on. I'm not going to bring up all the things I'm upset about. I'm going to stay focused on here's what bothered me, and we're clearly not seeing eye to eye on this situation. Okay? So keep my statements brief. I'm not going to go on. And then I am going to leave criticisms out. So the more that and you guys have probably heard this because I know you and you are incredibly active about wanting to learn better. So you've probably read books or blogs or whatever about this, but you want to start with I feel statements. So I feel like the way that this was handled could be better. So I feel like we need to have a conversation with this particular child about their use of allowance. That's what the issue was about. And that they need to do a better job asking before spending rather than spending and then asking for forgiveness. So again, that was just my personal issue. At the moment, I am explaining how I feel and what I want. And I'm not, saying you avoid difficult conversations all the time. And I felt like you were remaining silent so that you could look like the good guy and I could look like the bad guy. That's not helpful. That's my judgment on the situation. And my judgment could be wrong. So I'm not willing to throw that out there. So does that make sense? You're avoiding criticisms. You're making quick statements and not going on, and you're taking responsibility for your feelings You're not huffing and puffing and pulling a, woe is me. You're really trying to work towards a goal. Now, here's what your partner would do in this situation if they were healthy and if the ultimate goal was to get closer in your relationship and work through this together. This is what a healthy person and healthy arguing looks like. They would paraphrase what you hear, which is just a normal way of saying therapists use the word mirroring. So they mirror back to you what you've said. So my partner would say, Michelle, I hear you saying that you feel like, we didn't follow through with the a difficult conversation with our child about appropriate spending. And then I would nod and really feel validated that my partner heard me, that he understands where I'm coming from. He gets it, right? And then that makes me relax a little bit because I'm like, I don't know if he agrees with me or not, but I sure as heck know he heard me. And that's really reassuring because don't we all just want to be heard? Yes. Then my partner, I don't want to say rebuttals because, he may agree with me. He may not. And either way, it's okay. But the conversation then is started with he maybe expresses his feelings in a way that supports what he was thinking and feeling and how we should handle it. And in this situation for me, I listened. Remember, I give him the same respect he gave me, which is listening without interrupting. And I'll say back to him, oh, you know what? I didn't think of that. That's actually great. Let's do that. And my partner was just explaining, he's like, yeah, I hear you. I think that we do need to have that conversation. But this is when I was thinking about having that conversation, not right there at the dinner table with the rest of the kids around. I wanted to protect our child's integrity and, confidence. And so I wanted to pull them aside after dinner. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that's good. That's actually a great point. So we both kind of saw eye to eye, which was wonderful, right? And then we look at each other and we understand and we have a win in our, tally for being able to work through a prickly situation together. We both felt heard. We both felt validated. We were both reassured. And that is wonderful. And that's actually why conflict can bring two people together. If they handle it this way, it can strengthen a marriage because you're going to go through conflict no matter what. Now, this is what it looks like when you are involved with and loving an addict or alcoholic or somebody that struggles with addiction, however you want to call it. This is what conflict typically looks like, okay? And I know this from personal experience. Okay, so let's say they drank too much and humiliated you amongst family or friends or in public or with the kids or whatever, okay? Or they used drugs or whatever. You are hot to trot. You feel like this is absolutely trauma, chaos. So you pull them aside and you lecture or you nag or you over-explain, right? You accuse. And then what happens is, and your body language is angry, usually, because they've done it again after they promised they wouldn't. And who would not be upset by that, right? They broke a string. So of course you're going to feel emotional about it. I'm not asking you not to or be a robot, but you are kind of attacking them. You're accusing them. And what do? They defend themselves or they deny entirely, which is incredibly infuriating, or they lash out. So there's no responsibility taken. There's no acknowledgement that what they did was inappropriate or wrong or hurtful. It's just deflect, deny, it like bounces off of them and goes back to you. And so then what happens if they refuse to take responsibility or accountability or even acknowledge that your feelings are okay to feel? So there's no mirroring going back to you at all. Well, then you go into like lawyer mode, right? Where you're like, all right, I've got proof. I have proof. I have examples. I came prepared. Exhibit A and Exhibit B. And I've heard some people that, take videos of their spouse's behavior. I've heard pictures. I have personally collected the bottles or marked the bottles, all of which we should not do any of these behaviors. We don't need exhibits. We know, and they know. They're just not willing to admit it. So don't even waste your time or energy with any of that stuff. But when you're arguing, it's infuriating when somebody denies. So you dig deeper, you stand your ground, and you present them with evidence and examples, and thinking that there's no way they can deny this. There's no way. I've got proof. How can you possibly deny? So-and-so saw you. You have a history with this. Even your mom said blah, 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 right? And then they continue to deny. Now, sometimes this is when certain addicts, alcoholics, whatever, people with substance abuse issues, they will do anything to get you under control, to shut you down. So this is when it can actually turn incredibly hurtful. This is when name calling starts. This is when they dig into your past, which has nothing to do with their addiction, but they know it will put you in your place and make you feel ashamed and kind of get off the soapbox and hide or retreat. That's what they're attempting to do, to put you in your place, because they will do anything to get control over the situation. And if that does not work, what they will do in an argument is they will just go, okay, fine. They're thinking in their head, fine, I'll just give up and tell her what she wants to hear so I can get her off my back and she can go to another room and leave me alone. So then they play the whole, I'm so sorry, I won't do it again. You're right. They tell you exactly what you want to hear. And trust me, they know exactly what you want to hear because you've done this enough to know. You've been, in this cycle of conflict for long enough to know they know exactly what to say to you. And so they either they lash out or they placate you. And what happens is either you have the type of personality where you're super feisty, like me, and you dig deeper and you're like, that's right. You lied to me again. Or you're type of person where you don't like conflict and this whole situation has just really ruffled your feathers and you shut down. You apologize, and maybe, you quickly walk away. So in this model, this unhealthy model of fighting, really nothing gets accomplished. Like nothing. No real change has occurred because this cycle of fighting is not productive and it doesn't work. Nobody feels better. Your relationship isn't solidified. You might feel like there's a better connection, but really that's just you kind of being addicted to addiction, which is a real thing. And it's you being addicted to the conflict as a way to feel closer to your spouse, but that closeness is temporary and it's nothing solid or substantial or, anything it's not a foundation. It's just a way to get them to temporarily feel under control with an out of control situation, which is addiction. So that is unhealthy fighting versus healthy fighting. Now, it does not mean in healthy fighting that there aren't, I gave you a really kind of tame example. It doesn't mean in healthy fighting that you are not allowed to feel anger. A lot of women feel bad for feeling angry, and that's something that's a lie. You are allowed to react. You are allowed to be hurt. You are allowed for your heart to break. You are in a heartbreaking relationship, truly. And so it's okay for you not to be in that healthy fighting scenario, because here's the truth. You can work your little tuchus off all you want to, but unless you have a partner that's also got the same goal as you and is willing to be really honest and really truthful and really kind and really gentle with you, you're not going to be able to do the healthy model. That takes two healthy people. So you can choose to be healthy and follow the steps, but you have to drop the expectation that that your partner is going to, if they're still in denial about their addiction. Your fighting will never be fair and real and honest unless you're with somebody who's willing to be those things with you. Does that make sense? So all of this to say, what's the moral of the lesson today? It's please don't compare yourself and your relationship to the healthy model right now. It's unattainable until your partner and your spouse is willing to take accountability. And they can't take accountability until there's long-term sobriety and they're getting help with AA or a therapist, or they're diving into their own personal, self-help journey. And I hate using the word journey because it's so trendy right now, but you know what I mean. So do not compare yourself. Lower your expectations. Know that you are not crazy. And also know that if your spouse never gets healthy, never stops their addiction, that you can leave. I'm not telling you to leave. I'm saying you have the option of leaving. And you have the option of wanting to have a healthier version of arguing with a healthier human being. You reserve the right, and you actually deserve to be in a relationship where someone's going to mirror back to you your feelings and validate you and really wants to work through this together. That's what you deserve. Whether you choose to get it is entirely your decision, and there's zero judgment from me on whether you choose to stay or leave. Both are okay. And you can choose to stay today, and you reserve the right to change your mind tomorrow. But there's no need, sweet pea, to feel upset or judgmental of yourself for not attaining a healthy relationship model, okay? So I hope this was helpful to you. If you just found one or maybe two little things that I said during this podcast, something like takeaways, I think that's considered a success. I think you've done good work. And remember one thing. Remember that listening to me and doing your programs is great. It's half the battle. But getting better is work. No joke. It's work. I'm not going to lie to you. Like I'm full of hard truths. And the only way that I got better in my life is if I took what I was learning and put it into action, no matter how scary or difficult it was. And guess what? I have a terrible memory, so I need to listen to things over and over and over again until they become ingrained in my subconscious. And then I can put them into action. So you guys take what you're learning, use it in your real life, over and over again, and I promise you, you will see results. I promise you. Just like anything, nothing in life comes super easy, especially personal growth. But I believe in you, and I absolutely know that you can get through this time in your life and come out on the other side incredibly happy and incredibly strong and so confident. And you will start to feel like life is good again. I promise. and I'm here to cheer you on and be there for you every step of the way.
This podcast is created for your support, encouragement, and entertainment with Michelle's personal thoughts and beliefs. From one woman to another, bonded together by the fact we love someone suffering from addiction. This is not intended as a substitute for therapy or advice from a professional.